Welcome to the Comics Tribunal. I'm Michael McGovern. He is Andy Bernier. Here's the deal. We are talking comics. We are reviewing comics in a way that hopefully you haven't seen and heard before. We're coming at it from totally different perspectives. I'm from a writing perspective and from the perspective of somebody who has spent or wasted massive amounts of their life reading 1,000 Marvel comics. Andy is somebody who's coming from the artist side of things, and he is someone who's never read a book or any kind of words, I don't think. But this works out perfectly because with these two perspectives, they're going to be very different as we go along. I guess you'll see how it happens here on the Comics Tribunal. I'm looking forward to it. And Andy opens up every single one where Avengers Disassembled, number 500, the end of an era, or beginning of the end of an era. And we open with Andy talking about one of his favorite parts of the comic, the front of it, the cover.
Absolutely. This cover is really exciting. Holy cow. We talk about these characters. They're moving forward. They're moving from left to right on the screen, which is a very powerful image. We've got all the Avengers on here. But me coming at it from not knowing anything about comics, thinking, oh, geez, these Avengers, I know them from movies, but now they're disassembling? This seems, what's going on here? What's happening? This is a very... exciting half of a page. The other half seems like a nice graphic angle. I don't really know why they put this angle in here, but still exciting. That's all I really see about this. Exciting, a lot of bright things happening. Excited to get into this comic.
Does that graphic work for you? It's got a kind of a Washington Monument feel. I don't really know why it's there or what it means or anything. If they put it in there. I
feel like he did this drawing. And they didn't have a background, so they could do whatever they wanted with it. And I feel like a different artist put in it seems very separate from what he has going on. Okay. Actually, I've got a question. Bottom of the screen, this little character here. I
knew you were going to ask me that. Okay, I'm a Captain Britain, a version of Captain Britain is incredibly complicated. This character goes back, many decades, where a guy originally he had a scepter and then he had an amulet. It was like a 70s amulet. It's kind of like a swinger situation, and then eventually he had his own group, and it went into multiverse territory. As soon as you start talking multiverse, you kind of start drifting away from anything that might be canon. But I'm guessing this is a Captain Britain variant. She's in the comic for maybe a panel. I don't really even remember her reading in this comic.
So she's an Avenger.
I guess.
Okay. If it was my thought, I'd say, and it's a she too, huh? It's not some dude with long hair.
Kind of looks. I swear to God, I read this comic 5 times. I barely remember this person.
Okay.
Maybe at the very end where they were actually disassembled, she pops in again. And is like, "Remember me from the cover? I'm out." That's about it. So
right.
let's. Yeah, I guess we'll move on.
Okay.
This is a multiverse situation. Is it canon? Is it not? It's a little baffling. Maybe we'll do a little more research. But
sounds great.
No, we won't.
Actually, she shows up here on this first page about. Yeah, she's right here. There she is.
Captain Britain.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me.
That hair with that mask, I'm just going to say right now, it's kind of a bad choice.
Yeah.
She kind of looks like David Coverdale from Whitesnake, who threw on some kind of... It's like if David... You know what? Actually, it could be one of the guitarists from Def Leppard, now that I think about it.
Excellent. All right. We come upon these characters when they're just sitting around talking, which to me is my favorite part of seeing superheroes just talking about regular things.
It's really funny. This is the hallmark of the writer Brian Michael Bendis, who's one of my favorite writers. I love what he's done with comics. And this is also one of my favorite things about him. And this is also the number one complaint about him. And you narrowed it down to one sentence. It's superheroes talking. That is the hallmark. And I love it. I think it's great. They're talking about if it's which super villain girl would you like to get with sometime? And he's throwing down Madame Viper. And it's so human, it's so relatable. Hawkeye is such a bro, really, and he just will. And it humanizes these characters very, very quickly, so that when everything goes completely berserk on the next page, you at least get a sense of them as human beings.
So kind of just talking about a throwaway thing before the hits the fan, or the crap hits the fan if we're editing swear words out of this.
We will be editing. Enjoy the bleep, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lovely bleep. It is also funny that he says Madame Viper. This is really going nerd. There's a nerd dive here for later, but he says Madame Viper, and Madame Viper is Spider-Woman's sort of archenemy in many ways, and that he gets together with Spider-Woman later. That they have a big relationship. So it's kind of funny that it's laying really early groundwork for some later character stuff, which is again a nice little Bendis hallmark. He slips it in, and you might not even ever notice it as it's happening. But it's as a writer, I appreciate the foreshadowing.
There's a lot of soap opera happening, I feel like, in comics. The more I read them, the more I'm like, oh, this is like you got to know all about this.
It's soap opera in a lot of ways, in plot ways too, because you have to keep these characters around. I mean, yes, you can kill characters, but they have to come back because they're licensed. And it's sort of the same way with soap operas. You have to have all these storylines, all this drama, but you really don't want to actually kill people. So you have a lot of kidnappings, you have a lot of secrets. There's always going to be some secrets, lots of lies, lots of, getting with who. So there are a lot of similarities between, like mainstream comic continuity and soap operas, and trying to make any sense of them at all in the long term.
Okay, so just like in a soap opera, some guy who looks like a zombie comes out of this breach that happens. Who is this guy? Jack of Hearts?
This is Jack of Hearts. This is, when you talk about minor Marvel comic book characters, he pretty much shows up first in the dictionary. He's one of those characters who I read at some point that Bendis was looking at redoing the Avengers and what it was, and he looked at who was in the Avengers and he said, "Who the blank is Jack of Hearts?" That was how he felt about it. It's like, I want to get rid of all these characters, and I want to start with people. He's like, I want to bring in, bigger names and to have them all mixed together. He had a chip on his shoulder against Jack of Hearts, which I don't blame him, because he's kind of a non-entity as a character. He also, of course, like every character is somebody's favorite, no matter how dumb they are. I actually love Jack of Hearts because I read a couple comics with him in The Thing when I was a kid, and I was like, ooh, colorful, shiny, look, he dresses like a playing card. Like, it's so... I just hate myself for how much I enjoy those bad Jack of Hearts comics. So it does actually hurt my heart a little bit to see how.
But it's great because he's here and he's alive. And did he just blow up? Oh, jeez. Yeah. With a beautiful drawing of an explosion. I mean, that is great. The ink work on this, the coloring with any good explosion with art-wise, I feel like the coloring does a lot to it. You really get the heat from the colors that are used. The color goes and bleeds past the ink work. So we've got this ink work here that should be just black, but this color on top of it, this little airbrushing, is really helping to do that. And we're seeing just how close these other characters are right by them.
It's really. I also like that the colorist really knows how to make a nice glow. He does. Yes. He does. And there's multiple times where he does a good glow like that, and it's impressive. I enjoy it. I think it's funny that the She-Hulk is sort of looks like she's protecting Hawkeye from the damage, but not Wasp. Like, Wasp can't just fly behind her. She's just up there. I gotta protect this dude. Yeah, but not this tiny bug. Correctly. She has to do is open her hand, and she's gonna protect Wasp.
I'm surprised Wasp isn't flying towards the glow. Sorry,
she's not.
It's the wrong bug. It's the wrong bug. It was a failed attempt. We're gonna bleep that joke out too, right?
Keeping it 1,000 times.
Dang it.
All right. Yeah.
Aftermath.
Destruction. Aftermath.
Is this Captain Britain?
Hey, she's showing up.
She's showing up. What did she say? What is this? What happened?
I can't breathe. What is this? Yeah, what's happened? That's good. Bringing a lot to the action, Captain Britain.
For sure.
Yeah.
So she was there when this went down. Okay.
That's
good to know.
Nice to know. Good job, Captain Britain. Way to avenge. Yeah.
That is quite a crater.
So Scott Lang, Ant-Man is dead. Jack of Hearts is dead within a couple of pages. This is going to be a familiar refrain in this comic. Now, I said I'm a fan of Brian Michael Bendis. I absolutely am. We're going to do other Avengers and X-Men comics down the line where I heap praise upon this man. It will be upsetting to many people. This may be my least favorite comic series, this little 4-issue block that he ever did. And I get why he's doing it the way he's doing it. He just wants it to just be shocking. Bam, death, death, death. I'm like, oh, what's happening? We're completely discombobulated. He wants the reader off balance, and he wants the characters off balance for verisimilitude. Like, this is how it would actually be if you were attacked completely at random out of nowhere and a bunch of people died. But that's not having complete verisimilitude within the context of a story. Having it be like real life does not necessarily add to how it is drama-wise. Like, by the end of these couple pages, I mean, there's a movie about Ant-Man. You know, like, if you saw the movie, he's really likable. He's a wonderful character. He's really fun. Reading that, you know, even as an Ant-Man fan, seeing that crater, I'm like, okay, next. I mean, I didn't feel anything particularly reading it. It was just like, they're dead now? Like, did that actually happen? So there's no foreshadowing for it, and there should be for deaths like that. And we're going to see more like that, too, as we go along. The body count gets pretty high in these books, and it just keeps happening again and again where it's like, that's it? Really? They're dead? So it's not my favorite work by him, because normally he's great at setting up foreshadowing and drama and making you care about characters as they go through their tribulations.
Well, and it happens so early in this book, so I totally agree. Well, speaking of being off balance, Tony Stark here, sweating, and frankly, when I read this, I had no idea what was going on. I will say, art-wise, let me just talk about this great panel here inside the UN, right? That's where they are? I believe they're in the UN or something like that. I'm an art teacher, and I feel like a lot of students, when they're presented with something where it's like, hey, we have to draw something that's very complicated. How many rows are in the UN? And they're all wearing headphones, and there's all these people and everything. I feel like most artists would shy away from it because, holy cow, that's time-consuming to draw. And they did it, and holy cow, did they do a great job of setting this up. You know, knowing exactly where he is, how big it is, how important it is, how many people are watching him, which I think is great. But he turns out to be drunk, and I had a very hard time understanding that he was drunk.
I did as well. It's what we learn in these pages is it's very hard to convey that somebody's drunk without just saying they're drunk, or without having them go hick and having the little bubbles come up out of your head, like and having them be like that. It's not. I had no idea either. I had to read it. Like, it was only later where you're like, oh, they thought I was drunk, or they said, like, oh, I get it. I thought he was sick. I just thought he was physically ill. So it's hard to convey that, and I get why he couldn't say that in these pages, but it made the pages there was not great.
It was a little confusing because of that.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I think you can do it. It's a lot of body. You when you see someone drunk, it's a lot of movement, and I know we're looking at panels that are still, but through a drawing, you can get a lot of movement. It's unfortunate that they put Tony Stark in his suit, because I think that I don't know, maybe makes
you could
it a little
if he
more
was like
blocky.
in some kind of another suit where his tie was askew
Yeah.
or something like that, it looked disheveled. Yeah, maybe some like vomit down. No, I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard. I have to. The degree of difficulty on making that happen is extremely high. I don't know exactly how else you do it. But again, we have some really good foreshadowing here. I don't want to go ahead and bust the end of this, but Scarlet Witch shows up. Wanda shows up, and her face is always in shadow on this page, and that when in retrospect that is great foreshadowing, because I didn't notice it at the time. I don't think I noticed it in the second read even. It might have been the third one through on this. Like, whoa, wait a minute. It was a clever choice. I'm not sure if that was Bendis or if it was Finch who decided to make that happen, but well done.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's very good foreshadowing. Oh man, just this exploded mansion. I didn't realize the significance of the mansion either, because I was just introduced to it. Reading this comic the first time, it's like, oh, okay, they're at this house. I guess I didn't realize how much of a base of operations it really was.
Yeah, from day one, basically, it's been the base of operations, but I want to say it's been destroyed other times. I know. I'm sure some other people in the comments are going to let us know whether or not some people out there are going to know exactly. I feel like it might be a couple of times it has been at least. I mean, it's turned to rubble at least twice, 3 times.
Well,
Ultron shows up, on a pretty rate. In fact, he's showing up right now, basically. So it's not that shock. It should be really shocking, but they rebuild. The greatest job in the world is like being Tony Stark's construction guys. They are never out of work. His stuff always gets wiped out. So
that's a really good point. That's a really good point. It gets destroyed again looked like the Vision came and ran into it. Again, great explosions, great coloring here. Everything seems very red in this like the warmer tones. It's just very warm tones happening through this whole book because this mansion's just on fire for all of it. So we see the Vision pop out.
Yeah, face melting. And again, this is out of nowhere. This is very sudden. There is no foreshadowing with this. Face melts, and then I want to call them Ultron balls, but I don't think I should. Regardless, various metal spheres pop out of his head. Ultrons show up, and it feels very unreal because it's not set up in any way. Again, I know that he wants to convey this feeling of, it's all happening out of nowhere. We're all discombobulated, as Avengers. We don't know how to deal with it. It's too much. I get it, but as a reader, it's just like, okay, is it real? Is it happening? They're fighting, I guess. It's not grounded in very much at this point, and so I didn't have really much of any emotional reaction when I was reading it, except, just to go like, well, why? Okay, I guess you don't need that much reason why Ultron would attack, but. Why now? Why in this fashion? If he could have attacked if he had these things in the Vision the whole time, was there not a better time necessarily? I mean, I guess maybe there wasn't because their mansion's just been destroyed. But I don't know. It's very much out of nowhere for me, and it's not great. But fighting Ultron's always fun, but that's about it.
So a lot of action. I mean, this book does seem to have a ton of action, and we see. These Ultrons getting destroyed. One of the things that I love artistically is good text. And I feel like this book just uses digital layover text, which is unfortunate. I think to have good text in a comic, you really need the artist to understand and use the text in a way that fits with the image.
You need a good letterer. Yeah, the lettering is very important.
And at least have the artist beforehand understanding that. And in this case, these funk, 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 and boom, 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 I don't know, always just took me out of it. It's just not. It's like, why? We see that they're exploding. I don't even know why those are necessary.
It doesn't add a great deal to it, and they're clearly all just copy and pasted too, which is another one that's a little so. I mean, you can. I do like fakunk sound effects, so I'm gonna go ahead and praise that one a little bit, but especially and I do like the move of Captain America taking his shield and just beheading that Ultron. That's pretty rad too.
I feel like that's his move, right? That's
usually
the
big on
shield.
Beheading, but yeah, that's for robots. Yeah, it's solid choice by him.
She-Hulk is being drawn bigger and stronger, which I really dug. She's looking a lot less feminine as this book goes on because she's hulking out.
If you go back a couple pages, there's a little Bendis touch here that I really like. When the two guys being lower left, zoom in on those dudes where they're just talking. It's just two random guys, never see him before, never see him again, and they're talking about. They're working this just gun, showing up because Ultron shows up, the place blows up and everything. The guy's like, "I'm not trained for robotic defense systems. Sucks to be you." it's so we don't the hell should I know about if they're sending backup? Neither of them know anything. They have a gun. They're not properly trained, and then sucks to be you. It's such a tiny. This is a book that is in dire need of some humor because it's everything death and blowing up and hulking out and everything else. He's so good. You can't really teach humor for writing purposes. You either kind of have it or you don't. And Bendis is legitimately funny. and that he's able to drop this. And there's more later. I mean, in later Avengers books, they're much lighter. There's more jokes, but it's a quiet, light moment. It doesn't interrupt the flow of the story. It gives you a sense of, it's not just the Avengers and Ultron alone. There are other people around here. There are people showing up and doing things. So, quiet moment, like it. Praising Bendis for that one, because we're kind of smacking him around on those too. I want to make sure.
We're dissecting it. It's really hard to. But yeah, I think you're right. I like that about these comics too. The little bit of funny moments. So this is where she hulks out big time against the Vision and rips him in half, which we were talking about earlier. How it was almost not a big deal. Like, I didn't care. He was already face melted, and Ultron's popped out of his mouth. Now she rips him in half, and I feel like I was supposed to feel bad, and I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, like his face had already melted, so I'm not sure where they were. I wasn't really expecting him to be brought back in his original form like that, particularly.
Yeah.
Oh, and that was a big moment. And Vision was out of comics for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years. I mean, it was a long time where, Vision's legitimately dead, torn apart here. He's not put back together. They couldn't figure it out for many years of comic book time. So it really had a big effect on the Marvel Universe. And yeah, exactly. It was just like, okay, he's dead now too. All right. Next.
Well, now she's going after Captain America, and man, looks like she just picked up this giant truck, and
Are you trying to do was that the She-Hulk?
Her hulking out, like about to kill Captain America. Blackout to this very cryptic ending.
Let's just go ahead and say too cryptic, because we're saying we don't know who the people are, and what they're saying doesn't really add it to the story. It doesn't really, forward anything. It doesn't heighten any anticipation towards what's going to happen next. Particularly for me, it's not fantastic with much else, except it does have a little bit of. It makes sense in hindsight. It does actually, eventually when we're done with this, it will make some semblance of sense, but it doesn't add to anything right now. And the comics stories have to do both. And it's really hard. It's really hard to do that, but you have to serve what's going on right now to forward the plot, and you have to make it fit in this larger narrative. It fits in the larger narrative. It makes sense later, but as far as what it adds right now, it basically doesn't. So
yeah, that's
unfortunate. Is that the last? That's the last page, right?
Yeah, that's it. That ends it off.
It's a little cold at that point. So that is Avengers Disassembled. It's number 500. Thanks for viewing, enjoying the show. Comics Tribunal. Please subscribe, comment.
Yeah, we're gonna have the next issue's gonna be up as well. So if you want to check out Avengers 501, that'll be next. Subscribe. You'll see other comics that we're going through, and really, we just like talking about comics, and we hope you enjoy watching as well.